Well, here goes nothing. So, I am Christina, otherwise known as Sunshine Christina. I am a member of the Foul Play Discord YouTube channel and a member of the Making a Murderer research community. I have been researching this case for about 3 years now. And recently, with the help of other foul play community members, especially Jax and Susan, Zoe, and Darkside, I have started a podcast called The Crime Theory Exchange on Wednesdays. And you can find that on the Foul Play YouTube channel. I am making this video for a few reasons. One, because I feel like we all need to start making videos talking about this case. Yes, it's 6 years in. Yes, I think the majority of the world knows both Brendan and Steven are intentionally and wrongfully convicted. But there still seems to be this small subset who have either been employed or, because of an emotional investment to the verdict, are bound and determined to try and convince the world that these convictions are accurate, and they're not. Teresa Halbach her murder was used to frame Steven Avery. I don't know who killed her. All I know is that she was killed after she left the property on Halloween of 2005, and they used her death to frame Steven. And when they realized they needed a narrative that to help add the evidence into a theory of a crime that the public would believe, they added in Brendan, and they just stole his life just like they stole Steven's in '85. So there are a few things that I want to talk about. First, let me say I don't even know if I'm going to publish this video. I've never shown my face before, and I don't know if I'm going to do that now, but we'll see. Anyway, thanks to Jeff Jones, another member of the Making a Murderer community, and he also has his own YouTube channel. He was a recipient of the Eric Jose Memorial Scholarship Fund, and he began it's called a After Dark series on the Jeff Jones MAM channel. It's really good. You should check it out. He gifted me a microphone, so I'm trying that out today. Hopefully it'll help with the podcast on Wednesday, and plus, if when I discuss things on the open mic and the Uncle Ken readings that Dr. Silkman does that are just so amazing. So I began researching this case 3 years ago. I think I might have already said that. And I started requesting, thanks to Henberry, Seeking Truth, Yora's, J-Jax, Mystic Jinx, and all other FOIA warriors who have shared their vast success and their knowledge. I began writing FOIA requests, about 4 or 5 months ago. And I started requesting the other questionable cases that Manitowoc County has had over the years. There have been a few. The first case, I think, was probably Tom Kocourek's first murder. He was hired onto the Manitowoc Police Department in 1969, made a detective, I think, around 1973, and that's about the time that an elderly woman named Mary Glasser was murdered. The Roll brothers, I think it's Marvin and Ronald or Randall, were arrested for the crime based on the eyewitness testimony of a 13-year-old girl who has since repeatedly stated she didn't see what they made her say she saw. Both brothers have maintained their innocence. I think one of them has passed away, and I requested that case. I also requested the Deb Sukawati case. That case also has a conviction, and that gentleman maintained his innocence until the day he died as well. I also requested the Mary Ziegelbauer case. Mary Ziegelbauer was murdered, I believe, in '83 when Gregory Allen was living there. For those of you who have a newspapers.com subscription, if you do any looking for her in the newspapers archives, you will find that she was a stunning young lady. She was quite beautiful. She didn't live far from where Gregory Allen was living at the time, and they arrested a learning disabled, I believe he was 16-year-old kid, and convicted him of that crime. From what I understand, he maintained his innocence the entire time he was in prison as well. Interesting note about Mary Ziegelbauer, her brother Bob Ziegelbauer is the county executive, and he has a minimal role in the Steven Avery saga. How he got the position he holds is interesting, and I just found this out. Tom Kocourek wanted to dissolve the county executive board. I think it's a member of like 10 or 12 people, and he wanted to just have one county executive. His rationale for that was you would only have to pay one person instead of 12, which sounds good on paper. It saves the county money, right? But think about this. If the sheriff and the DA have the county executive in their pocket, they control the town. So that would have been a very huge power play to have both of the town's other powerful men in your pocket. And we know that Kocourek and Vogel have teamed up from the beginning, because if you look in the newspaper archives, Vogel and Kocourek, Vogel was listed on Kocourek's running ticket from day one. So they've always been a tag team. And Vogel, I believe, was 25 when he was elected to be a DA of Manitowoc County. And that's appalling to me. What does a 25-year-old kid know about dispensing fair justice? I mean, he's been out of law school, a couple of years? How many cases has he actually tried? Anyway, so there's that case, the Ziegelbauer case. Then another case I FOIA'd, and I'm still waiting on one more file, is the Randall Matea, Pam Claflin murder. That murder took place in '93 in Manitowoc County. She actually disappeared from the Manitowoc city limits, it's believed, and her body was found in the Manitowoc County city limits. Tom Kocourek was involved in that investigation as well. Randall Matea has, from day one, maintained his innocence, and on paper there are just a lot of questionable things. There are family members whose testimonies changed. There is they used the fact that they saw him bleaching jeans to a sign of guilt, and we know about the bleached jeans from Brendan. And there was a snitch used who had charges dropped against him and also received a cash payout. So, on paper, it just doesn't look good. Another rumor that I haven't been able to substantiate is that the Innocence Project was looking into this case, and they try to get the evidence to do DNA testing. I know that Andrew Colburn, for a fact, went and cataloged the evidence at the coroner's office. The rumor is when the laboratory got the evidence to test it, either there was nothing to test or no DNA could be found on anything. So I don't know. I'm still looking into that aspect, but if it's true, I do find it odd that, of course, Colburn was attached to that case as well. So hopefully Jax and I will present the Randall Matea Pam Claflin case either on the Crime Theory Exchange, or he may even want to do it on an open mic where everyone can join in and we can discuss it, which would be great. What else? Recently, I've been going down the rabbit hole. There was a juvenile court judge by the name of Brett Blomme who was arrested for distributing child porn. The images and videos that he were distributing contained adult males engaged in sex acts with toddlers. So this is no laughing matter, no 17-year-old girl in a bikini. This is sick shit. He is married, and him and his husband have 2 children. He didn't lose his children. There was 9 counts total that were brought against him, 7 state and 2 federal. He pled guilty the end of September, I believe, and received a minimum mandatory sentence of 5 years with the maximum allowed credit for all gain time. So in any way that he could get time off, he's going to get it. I actually think that the plea agreement may actually make it where he doesn't have to register as a sex offender. His fine was like $5,000 only. He had to surrender his iPhone. Poor guy. He was the CFO of his foundation. The name of his foundation was the Cream City Foundation. Now, Jeff Jones is a Wisconsin native, and he did explain that there's a brick manufacturer named Cream City or something. But I'm going to be honest here. I don't think that Brett Blomme was thinking about bricks when he named his foundation Cream City. I think he was thinking about something sick because he's a sick individual. He also spent his short career prior to becoming a judge, because he was elected to be a judge at the age of 38. He spent his short career working with disadvantaged youth in the public defender's office. And that bothers me because we know that pedophiles tend to work where they have a nice selection to their prey. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is pure speculation. It's a theory. I have no proof whatsoever. I do have some coincidences, and I am looking into it further. There is a Court of Appeals judge named Paul F. Riley, who on paper cannot be more different than Brett Blomme. Brett Blomme is gay. He is married to a gentleman. He has 2 children. He is very active in the LGBTQ community. On paper, he doesn't list a religion. He is a liberal. He's also 39 now. I think he might be 40 now. Paul F. Riley is in his mid to late 50s. He is heterosexual. He is married. Him and his wife have a couple of kids. He is a Republican, and he is a devout Catholic. Now, for some reason, a couple of weeks after Brett Blomme pled guilty and took his plea deal in federal court, Paul F. Riley submitted his resignation in the middle of his term and with no explanation. Now, I am sure he is going to land at some cushy firm making, 6 figures a year. And we'll probably never know why he left. But this is what I find weird. Blomme and Riley reside about 25 minutes from each other. Josh Call worked the Blomme investigation. He, at the same time, was also investigating allegations of abuse in the Catholic Church. He reports that he has his office, or his team in this investigation, has generated 138 reports. Brett Blomme is going to be distributing child porn to those he knows. So he is in the judiciary circles. He is he's not going to be selling this porn to Uncle Joe in Kentucky. He's going to be distributing it to people he knows. Now, I do know that one of the persons he distributed it to was in Minnesota, because on the DOJ press release, one of the agencies listed as participating in the investigation is the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And I do have a FOIA request into them to see what they have on the case. Because I have a feeling if I don't dig, if someone doesn't ask, they're never going to say who he was distributing the porn to. And I'm curious if he wasn't, one of his customers may have been Riley. And because Riley not only denied several of Steven's appeals prior to Kathleen Zellner coming on board, he also helped pin the laughable denial that the Court of Appeals just authored recently this past summer in 2021. If he had been caught with this child porn, would they bury this because of his connection to the Steven Avery case? And I have to say, yes, they would. They would hide it. Because they cannot allow this case to get in front of a judge and in front of a camera. Because once Zellner gets the case in a courtroom and lays it all out there in front of the camera and in front of the world, the attempt to pretend like there's nothing wrong will be over, because the curtain has been raised and everyone will see it for what it is, right? So, I mean, do I have any proof that Riley is one of his clients? No. But it's just the timing of all of these things just can't be ignored. So, I'm going to see. I have several requests out looking for information. We'll see what we come up with. I hope that maybe someone in the Wisconsin judiciary, if I do decide to publish this video, will see this and is interested in justice and will look into this a little further. I can't do anything from my house. I'm over 1,500 miles away. I don't have the ability to sit in the bars and hang out at the courthouses and listen to the chatter. But y'all do. So, put your ear out, put a fly on the wall, see what you can come up with. Because I think there's more to this than just Evers and Riley being two separate political parties. Because Evers was not prepared for Riley's resignation. He's still looking for someone to fill the seat on the Court of Appeals. And Riley, from the time he graduated law school, has chose a career path of serving as a judge. And that was his goal. Like, you could tell that's what he's always wanted to do. I think he may have aspired to be on the Wisconsin Supreme Court one day. And now it's over, just in the middle of it. It's not like he's in his late 60s and ready to retire. It's just, something is off. And I just feel like it's likely connected to the Blomme thing. So, if you have any info, please leave a comment. Look, try and reach me on Twitter or on Reddit. I made a Reddit sub for the Crime Theory Exchange podcast. You can message me there. Is there anything else? Oh, here's another little interesting thing I found out this week. Well, I got the proof this week. So, we all know who Joseph Wayne Evans is. Joseph Wayne Evans is the gentleman who, a few months after the debut of Making a Murderer, claimed that Steven Avery had confessed to killing Teresa Halbach to him. And he wrote like this extravagantly long letter, I think 8 or 9 pages of filled with all kinds of just odd bits of information, from the fact that the reason Teresa's vaginal cells will be found on the bullet is because she was shot in the vagina, which, is really odd because we all know Steven didn't kill her, so why would he be talking about that? And we know that the pap smear was used to make the DNA test, to do the DNA matching. So, did Culhane put vaginal cells on the bullet wash? So you have to look at it when you know the inmates didn't confess. You have to look at why the snitch is writing the letter, right? So I'm just wondering what his motivation was. So I did some looking, and if you go on the Wisconsin Department of Corrections website and put in Evans' name and go to the movement sheet, you will see that roughly about 4 weeks after he was convicted of first-degree murder and the death of a 40-year-old woman in Marionette County, here's yet another coincidence, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and he was sent to Dodge Correctional. Now, a few weeks after he was sentenced to life, and right after he found out that he was never going to leave prison out of a pine box, he is sent from Boscobel, Wisconsin, clear across the state to the Manitowoc County Jail. The official reason is for overcrowding. Now, here's the problem with that. I did some research on the newspapers.com site, seeing if they were actually having overcrowding to the point that they were taking maximum security prisoners, which those are the worst of the worst, and actually putting them in jails clear across the state with civilians, many who had not been convicted of a crime, because that seems awful risky. And I couldn't find anything. The only thing I was able to find was that they had restructured the sentencing guidelines for nonviolent offenders to help ease prison overcrowding. And then they were also trying to get about $1 billion in the next 10 years in taxpayer funding to build more prisons. No mention of taking the worst of the worst and shipping them all over to the jails. Plus, I do think it's likely there were better jails closer to Boscobel than clear across the county or clear across the state. Then you have the fact that they ship him to the county that Steven was living when Teresa was murdered. So now you have Marionette, where Steven has a connection, is where Evans is convicted. Now you have Manitowoc, which is where Steven allegedly killed Teresa Halbach, where Evans is hanging out. Now, he's only there for like 5 months. They ship him back to Boscobel, back to Dodge Correctional in June. So I guess whatever overcrowding was going on was solved in a few months. And then you don't hear anything about a confession. You don't hear anything. And then, a few months after making a murderer, he writes this, god-awful, ridiculous letter. Well, from what I understand, he also, because of that snitch letter, got an audience with the Convicting a Murderer documentary. And they spent many, many hours with him, interviewing him for their documentary, which is supposedly a documentary aimed at showing the truth, because as some people want everyone to believe, Making a Murderer left a lot of stuff out, and Steven and Brendan are really guilty, the cops didn't do anything wrong, and blah blah blah, and Convicting is going to prove that. So I don't know how they think they're going to do it, but we'll see. Anyway, so he spent hours with the Convicting crew, and then a supporter, provided $100,000 for Kathleen Zellner's office to offer a reward for tips leading to the conviction of the actual murder of Teresa Halbach. And I guess Evans is greedy, and he saw that, and he was like, whatever he got from the state of Wisconsin or the prosecutors or whatever he got for writing the Steven Avery told me he did it letter obviously doesn't compare to $100,000. So he then decided he would confess to being the killer, and he framed Steven. So he did that. So that kind of screwed Convicting a Murderer up. They had to restructure how they were going to do their documentary, I'm sure. And so I just find it odd that Joseph Wayne Evans was shipped to Manitowoc as a maximum security inmate, and hung out there for a few months and went back to Dodge Correctional, the same prison they shipped him out of. And he has his little insertion into this frigging roller coaster, just unbelievable case. And, we do know that there was a snitch in the 85 case that that letter was kept in the sheriff's office until the Wisconsin DCI came to collect the documents, and Peterson gave it to Strauss. And we know that letter is bogus as well. So I don't, do the DAs and cops put these inmates up to them, or do they just not care that they're not credible? Just makes you wonder. So anyway, I'm going to get off of here. I haven't decided if I'm going to post this yet. If I do, please hit like and subscribe if you find the content interesting and you want to hear more. If you have any questions, drop a comment below. And everybody have a lovely Saturday.